Believes that the provisions of the prenuptial agreement are fair, just, reasonable, and equitable.
Yes.
You are signing the prenuptial agreement freely and voluntarily without coercion or other undue influence by wife or any third party.
Yes.
There have been no threats of bodily or other harm or other actions against you amounting to coercion, compelling you to act against your free will to sign the prenuptial agreement.
No.
Todd, do you have any questions?
The truth isn't hiding inside a courthouse folder. The truth was already sealed inside Bravo's cameras, and locked in footage no one was meant to dissect. Because this battle didn't ignite the day legal papers hit the desk. It sparked the second Todd Tucker chose betrayal over loyalty, the second he turned against the woman who handed him a legacy. Kandi tried to disappear from the explosion quietly. No spectacle, no screaming headlines, no public collapse. But Todd wasn't looking for calm. He stormed into court and detonated something far darker. He didn't plead for distance. He didn't request protection. He demanded total control. He crowned himself the real parent. He swung at the prenup, and then he lunged for everything her name was built on. That was the instant this stopped being separation and started looking like conquest. Atlanta went silent. Faces froze behind glowing screens asking the same thing. Who is this man standing where Kandi's partner used to be? And right when Todd believed he'd seized the story, Kandi made a move no one saw coming. She didn't fight in public. She didn't cry on cue. She hit replay. And what Bravo filmed long before courtrooms were ever involved was about to become the very proof that shattered his version of events. Because when the camera tells its own story, no filing gets to erase it.
I want to marry you. That's not fair. Let's talk.
I'm asking you to talk. I'm asking you to tell me what is it that you wanted to say.
I want it to become a proper document. He said that.
How is it not a proper document, Todd?
I'm not the attorney.
What is not proper
Let's call the attorney. Let's call the attorney and let him talk.
Call him right now, please. I want him to tell me what is not proper.
Come on, let's go.
Please call him. I'm not sure what Todd's attorney is telling him is abnormal about the prenup. I actually had 2 lawyers to put my agreement together. I'm not sure what they think the problem is, besides that it's good.
We're going back and forth arguing before we're supposed to get married.
Exactly, because we're not going to get married if we don't have no prenup. And we sit up here arguing about that. I don't even understand why we're arguing, because if you work,
Good.
I work, so I'm not understanding what is it that we're doing.
The truth wasn't etched into legal language. The truth had already been archived by Bravo's lenses. Unnoticed, unguarded, never realizing they were preserving the second everything would eventually implode. This war didn't launch with signatures and stamps. It was born the day Todd Tucker decided he wouldn't only walk away from Kandi Burruss. He would try to drag her empire down as he went. Kandi wanted silence. No spectacle. No rumor mill. No teams chosen by strangers who don't carry the cost of fallout. She wanted it simple. She wanted it still. She wanted it over. But Todd didn't enter court softly. He entered swinging. The filing showed he didn't just suggest shared parenting. He didn't politely propose balance. He demanded power. Emergency custody. Exclusive physical custody. Exclusive legal custody. And a ruling that the prenup meant nothing. Not questionable. Erased. Then came the sentence that detonated everything, half of everything she owns. Not protection. Not provision. Possession. Atlanta went quiet. Because this wasn't a father seeking access. This was a man challenging the financial spine of a woman who built from nothing into everything. Screens across the city glowed with the same thought. How does a private unraveling become scorched earth court warfare overnight? The answer arrived in fragments. Todd's petition wasn't just about the kids. He painted Kandi as unavailable. He crowned himself the anchor, the constant, the one holding it together while she chased success. To the internet it sounded reasonable. To anyone who had watched long enough, it sounded scripted. Then Kandi made her move. No shouting. No whispers. No performance. She answered with paperwork so surgical, so unflinching, so lethal. It didn't retaliate. It revealed. She didn't refute. She archived. She didn't plead with emotion. She prosecuted with memory. And then she grabbed the one thing Todd never predicted would turn into evidence. Bravo. Not a channel. Not a series. A witness box. Because Todd's cornerstone claim was that the prenup was forced. That it was rushed. That he was cornered. That he didn't understand a word. That he was legally unguarded. It sounded heartbreaking. Until Kandi did something reckless and brilliant. She didn't ask for spin. She asked for playback. And what had aired years before, now became permanent. Footage of Todd seated beside his own attorney. Walking through each clause. Assessing the details. Affirming clarity. On camera. No tremor. No panic. No protest before signing. Just a man informed, consenting. Which left one conclusion standing. His courtroom version didn't match his recorded reality. And once that split surfaced, the case stopped being personal. It became procedural. Online, the mood flipped instantly. This wasn't a bitter breakup anymore. This was a war over truth. And Kandi had proof. In a blink, Todd wasn't the victim. He was the man nodding on tape and denying under oath. Then the custody battle turned sinister. Because Kandi didn't only counter the prenup. She reset the entire fight for her children. At first, she'd offered compromise. Shared time. Shared voice. A common ending. But after Todd struck the way he struck, Kandi didn't revise. She recalibrated. She re-entered court and said, no. Not shared. Not balanced. Primary custody. Mine. And it hit like a chambered round. Up to that moment, Todd had been crafting an image. Posts. Pics. Perfect domestic frames for the feed. Fatherhood, curated. Kandi didn't reply online. She arrived with architecture. Files. Invoices. Years of receipts. Care schedules. Consistency mapped in ink. And that's when the illusion broke. Because in family court, vibes mean nothing. Structure does. And Kandi brought blueprints. The documents showed she arranged the caregivers. She paid for the stability. She built the routine. Her family sat close enough to actually show up. Todd? No independent network. No proof of leadership at home. No alternative safety net. Only a storyline. And storylines don't raise children. Foundations do.
Oh, Todd can't say, oh, I take care. You always had a full-time nanny. So Todd, what are you talking about? The nanny assisted with both kids since birth. Todd never objected, and her family lives close by and helps. This completely destroys Todd's "she travels too much and the kids live for me now" narrative. This is critical because the custody case hinges on stability.
And from that second forward, Todd's case stopped looking calculated. It started looking cornered. Because every new detail boxed him in. He wasn't saying he participated. He was claiming he was the parent. And family court doesn't run on identity. It runs on patterns. And patterns don't applaud performances. They authenticate proof. This wasn't a competition of affection. It was an audit of responsibility. Who held the house together when no one was watching. And as Kandi's paperwork grew louder, Todd's voice started to thin. Until it didn't. It broke. Not in court. Online. Todd didn't post records. He posted sorrow. A message to heaven. A conversation with his mother. A cry into the void. Mom, I need you now more than ever. It felt vulnerable. It felt heavy. It felt perfectly placed. Because the Bravo footage had just crushed the spine of his defense. And suddenly, he wasn't a tactician. He was a grieving son. Which triggered a new question. Was this grief or strategy? Because it didn't arrive in isolation. It arrived under heat. Fans didn't offer comfort. They offered doubt. Because when a courtroom story falls apart, a replacement is usually written for the timeline. Then Kandi moved quietly and decisively. The play that never trends. The step that never gets applause. The choice that actually shifts power. She asked for silence. A gag order. Not to shield Todd. To shelter the children. No leaks. No subtweets. No camera confessions. No budget breakdowns. No addresses. No anonymous sources. Darkness. Comprehensive. Unforgiving. Her message didn't need captions. If this becomes war, it will live inside a courtroom. Not a comment section. Because she understood what Todd hadn't. Courts don't crown drama. They crown discipline. And with that order, she muted him. No press runs. No image repair. No emotional sound bites in real time. Just facts. Files. Forensics. And that's when attorneys in private started whispering something lethal. Todd wasn't losing a relationship. He was losing rank. Because the second someone attacks a prenup, they're not fighting feelings. They're fighting history. And history was recorded. On tape. And tape doesn't stutter. Tape doesn't sympathize. Tape doesn't care what you felt this morning. It remembers what you said years ago. Todd had filings. Kandi had memory. Todd had the crowd. Kandi had architecture. And court isn't powered by pity. It's powered by evidence. Which meant this battle was only entering its opening act. Silence isn't surrender. Sometimes it means blades are being honed. Once the gag order hit the calendar, everything appeared to slow, while moving at double speed beneath the surface. No selfies. No coded quotes. No unnamed insiders ghost feeding the internet. Just attorneys. Just formal language. Just sealed rooms where feelings are replaced with tactics. That week rewired Todd's entire world. Not through what the public could see, but through what vanished. No talk show circuit. No sympathy tour. No carefully lit comeback narrative. The window slammed shut. And anyone who hears the phrase gag order in a courtroom understands instantly This isn't divorce anymore. This is damage control. Because gag orders aren't about theater. They're about threat. Risk to a name. Risk to revenue. Risk to custody. Kandi wasn't hunting a moment. She was removing the possibility of one. And that single move shifted the entire climate. Overnight, the audience fractured. One camp insisted, she's shielding her children. The other murmured, she's shielding herself. Maybe both were right. But it didn't matter. Courts don't rule on motives. They rule on exposure. And Kandi's filing read like a risk assessment. No dissemination of financials. No publishing of home addresses. No childcare schedules. No legal strategies exposed. It was a legal blackout. And blackouts are only ordered when someone believes a storm is coming. Behind the scenes, Todd's attorney was busy with something the public couldn't see. A legal style that doesn't rely on silence. It relies on pressure. Subpoenas. Asset assessments. Forensic accounting. Language buried deep in filings that signal only one thing to experienced lawyers. A money hunt. Not support. Not stability. Extraction. And that's when a quieter narrative began surfacing. Not on blogs. Not in comment sections. In court records. Todd wasn't just asking for custody. He was positioning. Positioning for ownership. Not of children. Of outcome. Because when you challenge a prenup, you aren't rewriting history. You're gambling against it. And gambling only makes sense if you believe there's a larger prize behind the wall. That's when people started asking questions they hadn't asked before. Not, why did they divorce? But, why now? Because this marriage wasn't falling apart gently. This marriage detonated. And detonations are rarely accidental. Some fans went back. Old interviews. Old scenes. Old confessionals. Moments that once looked like arguments now looked like tension rehearsing. Business conversations interrupted mid-sentence. Disagreements that never reached resolution. And then there was the quote that resurfaced from years ago. A line Todd said with a smile. I never worry about money because I married it. At the time it sounded like romance. In hindsight, it sounded like foreshadowing. Now, people were reading filings like those old episodes. Frame by frame. Clause by clause. Trying to understand something deeper. Was this a custody fight? Or a hostile exit? Because the timing was impossible to ignore. Custody action before the divorce settled. Prenup attack before any mediation. Emergency filings without a waiting period. Everything rushed. Everything forceful. Everything loud. It didn't look like safety. It looked like pressure. And pressure is a tactic. The kind used when someone needs the other side to break. Financially. Emotionally. Strategically. But if Todd thought this would make Kandi flinch, he miscalculated. Because Kandi didn't escalate publicly. She tightened legally. The papers that followed weren't emotional. They were surgical. Line by line, her legal team dismantled his claims. Absence, challenge, neglect, disputed, support, documented. Every allegation met with timestamps. Every story met with spreadsheets. Every assumption met with archive. This wasn't reaction. This was preparation, which suggests something darker. Kandi did not look surprised. She looked ready, and readiness is never built overnight. So the question quietly shifted again. Not, what is Kandi hiding? But, what did she already know? Because no one walks into a legal firestorm unarmed. Unless they expected one. Todd's energy changed after that. No courtroom confidence. No cast-wide alliances. No bold moves. Just absence. And absence in this kind of case doesn't mean retreat. It means recalculation. And then came the whispers. Not from fans. From legal watchers. The kind that don't speculate. They interpret. They began pointing toward one fact. Prenup challenges backed by filmed evidence rarely survive. Once footage exists, credibility collapses. Because judges don't argue with cameras. They evaluate them. And Todd had been captured agreeing. Agreeing while fully informed. Agreeing while represented. Agreeing voluntarily. Which meant his current story wasn't weak. It was dangerous. Because attacking a prenup in court isn't just a request. It's an accusation. An accusation that can rebound. If the court finds misrepresentation, credibility becomes liability. And liability follows you everywhere. Into custody arguments. Into financial claims. Into future motions. Trust doesn't break quietly. It breaks loudly. And Todd's filings weren't whispering. They were screaming. Online some still defended him. He's fighting for his kids. She's using her power. But power doesn't live in Instagram captions. It lives in evidence. And evidence was stacking up on one side. The silence after the gag order didn't calm things. It clarified them. This wasn't a man versus woman case. It was preparation versus expectation. Structure versus emotion. Contract versus improvisation. And improvisation doesn't last in court. Because court isn't theater. It's architecture. And architecture doesn't collapse easily. It cracks first. Tiny cracks. Undetectable cracks. Until one day, everything gives in at once. By the end of that week, something strange had happened. Todd wasn't winning public opinion. He was losing narrative ownership. And that's fatal in a high-profile case. Because when the story no longer belongs to you, bad things follow. Your words get questioned. Your motives get doubted. Your sincerity gets dissected. And the children become terrain, not people. Terrain between two legal armies moving in opposite directions. And then a deeper truth surfaced. A quiet one. Kandi wasn't just fighting for custody. She was fighting for limitation. Limiting who gets to speak. Limiting who defines truth. Limiting who controls legacy. Because legacy doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being irreversible. And Todd had just challenged something irreversible. History. On camera. And history had receipts. By the time the press realized nothing new was coming out, they realized something else. This story wasn't stalled. It was being constructed. Elsewhere. And quietly. In filing cabinets. In law firm hallways. In rooms where no cameras were allowed. This divorce wasn't loud anymore. It was dangerous. Because loud cases explode early. Silent ones collapse late. And when they collapse, they don't spare anyone. Not fathers. Not mothers. Not fans. Not reputations. Just truth standing where performance used to be. And truth doesn't trend. It settles. Next time, it would be the courtroom's turn to speak. By the time the courtroom lights came on, everything else had already gone dark. There were no leaks. No statements. No breadcrumbs for the public to chase. Only bodies entering a room with paper thicker than anger. This is the part of the story nobody live streams. No filters. No comments section. No applause. Just the sound of shoes against polished floors, and a silence that felt engineered. Todd arrived first. Not angry. Not smiling. Controlled. The kind of calm that isn't natural. The kind that's rehearsed. Kandi arrived minutes later. Not defiant. Not fragile. Quiet. And when silence enters a courtroom that designed, it usually means one side already knows something the other doesn't. Todd's side came armed with thickness. File boxes. Tabs. Folders. An army of exhibits assembled to do what emotion could not. Overwhelm. Because when a case can't win on truth, it attempts to win on volume. His attorney led with aggression. He didn't frame Todd as greedy. He framed him as desperate. Not controlling. Concerned. Not hostile. Heartbroken. He spoke of a father watching a family drift away. Of a man pushed aside by fame. Of children confused by schedules built around business. Every word was selected to sound soft, but land sharp. The court listened. Not emotionally. Logically. Because judges don't react. They inventory. And when Todd's attorney tried to paint Kandi as absent, Kandi's team did something unexpected. They didn't object. They waited. And then they introduced structure. Not stories. Structure. Payment histories. Childcare agreements. Calendars. Medical records. School involvement. Every claim met with logistics. It wasn't cinematic. It was unforgiving. Because structure doesn't rebut narratives. It deletes them. The illusion of present father began to thin under documentation. Not with drama, but with math. Every date accounted for. Every caregiver named. Every routine clarified. When Todd's team tried to claim custody based on feeling, Kandi's team answered with fact. The emotional temperature dropped instantly. The room didn't soften. It sharpened. Then came the part Todd wasn't ready for. The Bravo footage wasn't introduced as entertainment. It wasn't framed as reality TV. It was presented as evidence. Because when something is filmed, emotion becomes irrelevant. And precedent becomes visual. The screen lit up. Years old. Clear. Todd with his attorney beside him. Engaged. Responsive. Informed. No confusion. No distress. No reluctance. The courtroom did what it always does when reality enters. It held its breath. Todd didn't look away. But he didn't look forward either. He stared into a middle distance, where memories either obey or betray. And his did both. Because the footage wasn't loud. It was gentle. And gentleness makes lies stand out louder. The filing that once sounded reasonable, now sounded invented. When his attorney tried to reframe it, the judge didn't ask questions. He studied timestamps, which is courtroom language for, I already know. Todd's jaw set tighter. Because once a judge stops asking, it usually means the verdict is constructing itself. Behind the arguments, other things were happening, unseen. Because the most important parts of court don't happen out loud. They happen in pauses, in scribbles, in glances. One source described it later as, the air shifted. Not theatrically, procedurally. That's the difference between losing influence and losing presence. Strategic cracks began showing by midday. Todd's legal team went quiet unexpectedly in moments where pressure normally rises, which tells experienced observers only one thing: something isn't landing. And when arguments stop landing, lawyers pivot, not to truth, to damage control. Every time the attorney leaned into emotion, Kandi's team leaned into infrastructure. Every time Todd looked for sympathy, the documents denied him oxygen. And slowly, the court stopped reacting to his narrative. It didn't dismiss it, it outgrew it. Meanwhile, Kandi remained physically still. No dramatic sighs. No expressions for journalists to clip. Just composure. Not confidence. Not defiance. Control. And control unsettles people who didn't bring any. The emotional implosion wasn't loud. It didn't look like shouting. It looked like fading. Like a man watching leverage slip beyond reach. Like urgency realizing it arrived too late. Then came the moment no one had forecast. Todd tried to speak. Not through his lawyer. Himself. The court granted him seconds. He used them to describe pain, distance, loss, a sense that his life had turned into noise. And for a moment, the room softened, until his last sentence, when emotion crossed the line into accusation. An accusation came without proof, and proof lives in the courthouse, not feeling. Kandi did not respond verbally. Her attorney did, with one sentence, one surgical line, delivered without volume, without heat, without flair. The entire room snapped back into symmetry. The statement was not explosive. It was fatal. Not to Todd, to his case, because what followed wasn't argument. It was silence. Not dismissal. Not victory. Silence. The kind that means something has fractured, and it will not be mended during this session. As the court adjourned, Todd stood still. Kandi did not. She exited quietly. No gestures. No performances. Because winning doesn't require witnesses. Only records. Outside, the cameras were waiting, but no one fed them. No quotes. No sighs. No expressions. Just movement. Which is how true power behaves when it has nothing to prove. Back online, speculation exploded again with new shapes. How did it go? Who won? Was it close? No one answered. Because anyone who had been inside that room knew something few could explain. This case would not end in applause. It would end in paragraphs. Dense ones. Dry ones. Painfully accurate ones. Written by someone who didn't care what Instagram felt. Only what documents said. And documents were no longer kind. By nightfall, the narrative had changed one last time. Not officially. Perceptually. Todd no longer looked like a fighter. He looked like someone who had misread the terrain. And Kandi no longer looked like a celebrity. She looked like something colder. Something steadier. An architect of outcome. This war would not end with shouting. It would end with language so precise. It could outlive both of them. And when it does, nobody will remember the tears. They'll remember the verdict. This isn't just a divorce. It's a quiet demolition happening one filing at a time. When the cameras turn off, when the comments stop refreshing, when the headlines move on, the paperwork doesn't. Because in cases like this, nobody wins. They survive. And the survival isn't loud. It looks like signatures. It sounds like silence. It settles like language that cannot be unsaid. Todd entered this battle thinking emotion would protect him. Kandi entered it knowing documentation would. One side brought stories. The other brought structure. And courts don't rule on stories. They rule on proof. So now, everything that once lived behind closed doors is being translated into legal sentences with no feeling attached. Not love. Not betrayal. Not regret. Just official truth. The kind that outlives relationships. The kind that doesn't care who builds the narrative. Only who survives it. And here's the truth nobody says out loud. When you challenge a prenup, you aren't just fighting your ex-spouse. You are fighting your past. On camera. In ink. Under oath. This is no longer about marriage. It's about ownership. It's no longer about custody. It's about control. And whatever happens next will not happen on social media. It will happen quietly. In rulings. In orders. In words that cannot be erased. So ask yourself this. When history is signed into record, who do you think it will remember? If you're watching for truth instead of noise, you're already in the right place. And we're not done. Not even close.